Hi, I'm Colette and welcome to my channel. Welcome to Witch Ways. Today I'm going to be talking about deity, going over some basic considerations for how to decide if you want to work with deity or you don't want to work with deity, some basic how-tos about getting started, and this is going to be a two-parter. So if you're enjoying these videos, hit like and subscribe. I want to frame today's video by saying that I do work with deity, and I have for about 40 years, and I work with deity with my students in my school. I believe that deities are actual beings, but working with deity or not working with deity is a very personal choice. Lots of witches don't do that. Do some research. Here's some various opinions. Try some things out and then decide for yourself. So what is deity? I want to give you a little background on the way my ancestors might have viewed deity over time. It's very hypothetical and based on looking at artifacts left through the modern lens. So probably originally my ancestors originally worked with animism, which is the idea that everything is alive, including the land. And then gradually over time, that may have evolved into the idea of local land spirits, spirits of place that were worshipped and reverenced, or kind of supreme beings of animals that were very powerful, such as cave bears. And then over time that further developed, possibly around the time that farming started, maybe not, into the idea of deities as distinct beings that had specific attributes and personalities. And this is all very hypothetical because witchcraft is very much a broken tradition. And these pre-Stone Age and Stone Age beliefs have influenced modern witchcraft, but we don't actually know specifics about what they believed. A lot of people do reclaim things through visions or claim things, as the case may be, through visioning, but it's very hypothetical. A few ideas about modern thoughts on deity are the psychology story, for example. And the psychology story says that deities are archetypes or metaphors that express parts of who we are, and things that we need and want. A form of thought that is more spiritual is that deities are a stream of universal energy that take on a face according to needs that we have or relationships that we develop with spirit and the world around us. Possibly the simplest definition is that deities are a very large supernatural being, which is what I personally believe, and that they have a resonance or a tone or a flavor that we as humans go, oh, that resonance reminds us of this quality, and so we give them attributes. Or we may have direct communication with them and come to understand their attributes that way. Some places, a form of deity that was worshipped was the oldest ancestor or original mother, and that became deity. My friend Larry said something once that has resonated with me over time and has evolved a bit and has informed my definition of deity. So deity is a being who has historically worked with, for a long period of time, humans or a particular group of humans and has responded to their needs. And they are beings that like working with humans, are committed to working with humans, continuing to work with humans. And some of the things they provide can be protection, providing knowledge about ways of life or life skills, how to live, or many other things. And in some cases, they are seen as creator beings, perhaps tying in with that idea of original ancestor. What are some reasons that you might want to call deity? The first reason is just because you want to. The idea resonates, and that is fine. That's enough of a reason right there. Also, deities, in my view, and in many people's view, are seen as having a broader overview, a bigger perspective than we can have as humans due to their very, very, very long life. And so they can advise or give us information or suggestions about how to best carry out a piece of magic, or the consequences of your actions, especially if you're an impulsive kind of person. Another time when you might consider working with deity is when you're going to do some working that affects large amounts of people or other groups of people, besides yourself and your immediate family and friends. So an example of this would be doing social justice magic, which is really needed right now. However, I do want to just say that white people in particular, and beginning witches, have a tendency to kind of jump in and think we know what needs to happen and do magic around it. And I think it's really good right now to just take a moment and pause and listen to what people who are affected by social justice issues have to say. Let that inform your magic. And then also check in with deity to see if it is in the interest of all beings over the long term. Also, deities can bring more force to your spell, more magic, a deeper strength to help you not deplete yourself if you're working on a really big working. Another reason that you might want to work with deity is simply that you want to explore the mythology and magic of your own lineage. So there's lots of reasons you might not want to work with deity, and I'm probably not going to get them all because basically since I've worked with deity for so long, that's my bias. The first reason being you don't want to, and that's fine. You don't ever have to. Another reason that I sometimes personally don't invoke or call in deity is if I'm doing part of just my simple daily practice or some kitchen witchery or some house magic or basic protection work that's just kind of everyday practice that's not complex. Maybe you don't feel ready to work with deity or feel like you need more information. Or maybe you're someone who is more drawn to working with magic as a practice or a technique, not as a form of spirituality. Or maybe for you, you practice a form of animism where everything is alive, everything is sacred, you are in relationship to it, and the concept of deity maybe feels foreign to that particular form of animism. Another reason that you might choose to not work with deity is that some religions have a long history of seeing deity as an absolute authority and in charge of everything, often with overtones of judgment or punishment. If you were brought up, or for those of us who were brought up in one of these traditions, it can really be hard to break out of seeing deity in that way and letting that influence our witchcraft. And I've had my own struggles with that for sure. But one of the things I was originally taught about deity and witchcraft was that it can be a way of honoring rather than a form of subservience. And I'm going to talk more about that next week. There's no real order or format for getting started. I'm going to throw out a few ideas and start where you feel like there's an opening with an idea that feels manageable to you. One of the things you can do is to read stories about the beings of your lineage. And I'll just say that if you are of white or European, Mediterranean background, those stories are going to be a lot more available and accessible generally in order to buy books or find them at the library. And if you aren't of European, Mediterranean background, you're really going to have to research in many cases and really look for information on deities. I think the best thing to do is if you have a culture where there are still living elders, it's always best to learn from them. You can ask them what they remember. Also, I feel like there's a lot more diversity starting to come up in witchcraft, and there's a lot of witches on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok that come from various backgrounds and are talking about their lineages, so you can get some ideas from them. And more info is just starting to show up that is representative of all of us rather than just some of us. But it is a slow process, and I feel like it's important to support that process with our magic and our money and in whatever way we can. A specific sort of format that you can change as it suits you is to start with honoring and respect. That is always a great place to start. So if you feel called by a particular deity of your lineage, or you are wanting to work more closely with a deity that you found that interests you, a good way to start is simply by building an altar. And you can intuit or do research on what that deity likes and maybe include some of those things on that altar. And I'm going to, again, be talking about different kinds of deities and what they like a little bit next time. So you create an altar as best you can and light a candle daily. And just take a minute or two to just sit with that and be with that altar and with that being. Another thing you can do is to maybe offer a verbal acknowledgement. And that can be as simple as the name of the deity, a descriptive phrase about who they are and what they do, and a simple phrase of gratitude or honoring. And so that could sound as simple as something like, Bridget, goddess of poetry, smithcraft, and healing, I honor you and your gifts. It could be very simple. It doesn't have to be great literature. It just needs to come from the heart. Making offerings is another way to get started with working with deity, and offerings can include things that you know that they traditionally like, or burning herbs from the region they come from or that are associated with them, if that's known. You also can pour water or some kind of alcoholic beverage like wine into a glass and put it on an altar with them, or pour that out onto the earth regularly as a practice to honor them. And if you're creating an altar for them, just add to the altar as you know more and as you feel directed. One other thing I would say is that working with deity is like anything else. It's a relationship. It takes time to build and time to maintain. Stay with it. That's what will serve you best in the long run. There is so much to be gained from working with deities and spirit beings of your own ethnic background. I recommend that strongly. I think you'll find it very rewarding. And I'll acknowledge European witches, if that's who you are watching this, come from a broken tradition. However, the deities of those lineages still know us. They know our names, and our DNA remembers who they are and how to be in relationship with them. And I'm going to talk more about different kinds of deities next week. So, as I just said, I'm going to go into various categories of deities next time, and how you might get an idea of who is calling you, who they are, or what type of deity they are, or who to call on when you're doing various kinds of workings. So that's what I'm going to do next time, and where I'm going to take this. Maybe this will even be a 3-part. Who knows? All right. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and be well.